This week we are going to talk all about Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman was a woman who led hundreds of African American slaves to freedom. Okay, and this is her. And again, her name is Harriet Tubman. So follow along as I read the book. One of the things that's interesting about this book is if you open it up and look down in the corner, this is a wanted poster. So Harriet Tubman was helping people. So they made this poster that said wanted, dead or alive. So they didn't care how they got her. They just wanted her to stop helping people. Harriet Tubman by Catherine Nichols and illustrated by Brian Dennington. Remember, if you illustrate the book, you draw the pictures. Harriet Tubman was born on a Maryland plantation in the South. The year was probably 1820, but no one knows for sure. That's because Harriet was born a slave. A slave's date of birth was not written down. No one knew that Harriet would grow to be a brave woman. No one knew that someday she would lead hundreds of people to freedom. As a child, Harriet had a nickname, Minty. When Minty was around 6 years old, she was put to work. Her job was to wind yarn into balls. If the yarn broke, she was whipped. Later, Minty was given a new job. She checked muskrat traps. Minty had to walk barefoot in cold rivers. Still, she liked this work better than winding yarn. One day, Minty woke up sick. When she was better, she was not allowed in the river anymore. It was back to winding yarn for Minty. When Minty was older, she worked in the fields. One day, she saw a slave try to escape. The slave ran into a store. The field boss followed him. So did Minty. Then the slave ran out of the store. This time Minty stood in the doorway. She refused to move. The boss picked up a heavy weight. He threw it at the slave. He missed. The weight hit Minty instead. Minty was badly hurt. When she got better, she had a long scar on her forehead. She would sometimes fall asleep suddenly. The other slaves were proud of Minty. She had stood up to the boss. They no longer called her Minty. She was Harriet now. In 1844, Harriet married John Tubman. John was a free man. No one owned him. Yet, Harriet was still a slave. One day, Harriet learned that she was going to be sold. She would have to leave her family. Harriet told John that she wanted to escape. She wanted him to go with her. John didn't want to go. He also didn't want Harriet to escape. He told her that if she tried, he would tell her master. That was not nice of him. Harriet waited for John to fall asleep, and she packed up some food and left the cabin. Harriet knew that some people wanted to help slaves. These people ran a special railroad, the Underground Railroad. This railroad didn't have trains. It was made up of people who hid the slaves and helped them escape. The slaves were called the passengers. Harriet knew where one such woman lived. The woman helped Harriet. She told Harriet how to get to the next safe house. Harriet traveled only at night. During the day, people would be looking for her. Harriet walked quickly through the dark woods. She followed the North Star. She knew it would lead her to the north, to freedom. After several days, Harriet crossed over to Pennsylvania, a free state in the North. Free states did not allow slavery. Harriet had dreamed of this moment for a long time. Now, it had finally happened. She was free. Harriet found work in a hotel, but she didn't forget her family. She wanted them to be free too. One day, she learned that her sister's family was about to be sold. Harriet went back down to the South and helped them escape. Harriet continued helping slaves escape. Each time, the danger grew. Slave owners had found out about Harriet. They offered a reward for her. They wanted her caught, either dead or alive. But Harriet didn't stop. Sometimes she disguised herself. She would dress up as a man or as an old woman. One day, Harriet went back for her husband. John met her at the cabin door. He told her he did not want to leave his home. Sadly, Harriet walked away. She never saw John again. Harriet helped many people escape, but her parents were still slaves. They were old now. Traveling on foot would be hard for them. Harriet wanted her parents to be free, though. In 1857, she went back for them. She made a simple wagon and hitched a horse to it. Then she drove her parents away from slavery. In 1861, war broke out. The states in the North wanted to free the slaves. The states in the South did not. Harriet helped the North. She worked as a nurse. She cared for sick soldiers. In 1865, the war ended. The North had won. Now, all slaves were free. Harriet continued to help people. She returned to her home in Auburn, New York. There, she cared for her parents. She also cared for former slaves. Harriet never turned anyone away. In 1913, Harriet Tubman died. The people of Auburn honored her. Flags were flown at half-mast. Famous people spoke. Everyone agreed that Harriet Tubman had been a brave woman. In her lifetime, Harriet Tubman helped more than 300 slaves escape. She never lost a passenger on the Underground Railroad, and she was never caught. Again, we will be talking all about Harriet Tubman this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So go ahead and read this book by yourself now. There probably will not be time for you to read it with a partner. Okay, this is a long book. Take your time, look over the words. If you need to listen to me read it again, listen to the video again.